had an amazing day. I'm doing this video because this one is going to be really short, and I'm just going to push this video up. I have a few videos that I want to do for today. This has been a long day. I was up this morning at 3 a.m. Actually, I didn't go to bed last night because if I would have went to bed, it would have been like, go to bed at 3:30, wake up at 4, in order to go to Fall Lines. And so Lee, Garland, Nixon, we had a great time. In fact, we had really good conversations, and one of those conversations I'm going to talk about in another video coming up. That one is going to be done live. So let's start with Brexit. Theresa May has had a very difficult time as a prime minister. Her problems have not been solved. In fact, they've been getting more complicated, and the calls for her resignation have only gotten louder. On the day that Theresa May, in fact, the thing that you're seeing in the background, on the day that Britain was supposed to be leaving the European Union, this vote was taking place. This vote that was taking place was her withdrawal bill. It wasn't her full withdrawal bill. It was a portion of the withdrawal bill. The reason why it wasn't the full withdrawal bill is because the other withdrawal bill had been voted down in historic numbers. And Bercow made an announcement saying, you will not keep bringing this withdrawal bill back to Parliament to be voted on. So, in order to make it substantially different, she removed a component that explained what the relationship was going to be with the European Union after Britain leaves. That part was essentially ripped from the bill. Not something you were supposed to be able to do, but she did it anyway, because she wanted to get something over the finish line. And on that day that this vote was taking place, the day that Britain was supposed to be leaving the European Union, once again, she was voted down. Even after offering her head if they decided to get rid of it. Meaning, I will leave as prime minister. I am going to leave as prime minister. I am throwing myself on my own sword. And her sword fell and she missed. I like that joke. Theresa May threw herself on her own sword and missed. That is the funniest thing to me. That's so brutal. That's so brutal. It is so simplistic, but the simplistic of it, it's like a sword blade, right? It's this elegant weapon, simplistic, but kills nonetheless. That's kind of how that joke was. Nevertheless, let's go into what's been taking place. They have Theresa May's vote that gets voted down. Parliament tries to assert itself. So on Monday, Parliament had indicative votes. There was various votes that was up for grabs from the standpoint of Parliament. Labour was pushing for Common Market 2.0. Labour almost got that over the finish line. They had Conservatives and SNP decide that, yes, this is what we want to back. But there were some Labour members that decided to not back the vote. And I want to show that part because I find that part to be extremely interesting. Take a look at this. Let's see, right here. So these were the options that was up for grabs. Motion C, Customs Union, that was defeated. Motion D, Common Market 2.0, that was defeated. Motion E, Confirmatory Public Vote, that was defeated. Motion G, Parliamentary Supremacy, that sounds immensely badass, but that was also defeated. Interestingly enough, Nick Bowles, tabled by Nick Bowles, Conservative, he resigned after this. In a big splashy show, he absolutely resigned. Another thing I want you to look at right here. So, Labour, 185 votes. SNP, 32 votes. Conservatives crossed over the line in order to vote, even though the party was against it. 33 votes. But look at this. 25 Labour members were turncoats. If even 12 of these members decided to vote with Labour, this would have passed. This would have been the only thing that passed. There were other votes that were close, don't get me wrong, but this was a vote that the whips of the Labour Party were not able to get their people to toe the line. So that's where we are for that, meaning everything else failed. Nothing got over the finish line. Even with Parliament taking control of the reins, nothing was able to get over the finish line. So today, Theresa May comes out and says this. It was a big splashy statement. To give a summary, basically, we've reached the limits of what Parliament can do. my red lines is not getting us anywhere. I am willing to go or to speak with the leader of the opposition. I'm willing to include him in the negotiations, and I'm also going to ask the European Union for an extension. Now, the European Union has said it's only going to give an extension if something gets through Parliament. I mean, you got to get something through in order for us to give you an extension, because this process seems to be pointless. You have not been able to get anything through, so why will we engage in extension? Hard Brexit, call it a day. They're looking at it as a hard Brexit is more and more likely. Theresa May is doing everything she can to stop a hard Brexit-ish. I mean, she's scratched that statement. That statement's not true. Theresa May is standing by her red lines, and she's been using this hard Brexit as a way to try to cajole her party into voting for it. She even took the step of threatening a Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn, by threatening a snap election because she knows the Tories would get slaughtered, using that as a threat to back my vote. She has consistently went with this idea of my deal or no deal, as if that's the only thing that's on the table. But that's the way she ran this for 2 years. This is the thing that she negotiated, and she negotiated something that had no chance of getting through Parliament, and she knew it had no chance of getting through Parliament all the way back from months ago, when the European Union says what she's trying to do is unworkable, and Parliament was pretty clear that it was against what she was doing. So this is her statement. And this statement was roundly hated by the Brexiteers, because their thought is, if you're bringing Jeremy Corbyn in on the negotiations, the key thing that Jeremy Corbyn wanted was a common market 2.0. Are you going to allow something like this to take place? And if so, from their standpoint, you've completely destroyed any notion of Brexit. Let's hear her out.
Deliver the Brexit the British people voted for, and allow us to move on and begin bringing our divided country back together. I know there are some who are so fed up with delay and endless arguments that they would like to leave with no deal next week. I've always been clear that we could make a success of no deal in the long term, but leaving with a deal is the best solution. So we will need a further extension of Article 50, one that is as short as possible and which ends when we pass a deal. And we need to be clear what such an extension is for, to ensure we leave in a timely and orderly way. This debate, this division, cannot drag on much longer. It is putting members of Parliament and everyone else under immense pressure, and it is doing damage to our politics. Despite the best efforts of MPs, the process that the House of Commons has tried to lead has not come up with an answer. So today I am taking action to break the logjam. I'm offering to sit down with the Leader of the Opposition and to try to agree a plan that we would both stick to ensure that we leave the European Union and that we do so with a deal. Any plan would have to agree the current withdrawal agreement. It has already been negotiated with the 27 other members, and the EU has repeatedly said that it cannot and will not be reopened. What we need to focus on is our future relationship with the EU. The ideal outcome of this process would be to agree an approach on a future relationship that delivers on the result of the referendum, that both the Leader of the Opposition and I could put to the House for approval, and which I could then take to next week's European Council. However, if we cannot agree on a single unified approach, then we would instead agree a number of options for the future relationship that we could put to the House in a series of votes to determine which course to pursue. Crucially, the government stands ready to abide by the decision of the House. But to make this process work, the opposition would need to agree to this too. The government would then bring forward the withdrawal agreement bill. We would want to agree a timetable for this bill to ensure it is passed before the 22nd of May, so that the United Kingdom need not take part in European parliamentary elections. This is a difficult time for everyone. Passions are running high on all sides of the argument. But we can and must find the compromises that will deliver what the British people voted for. This is a decisive moment in the story of these islands, and it requires national unity to deliver the national interest.
That looks so odd. It's just the way she just national unity and the national interest. It just our transition is so abrupt. So that's the Prime Minister's statement. That's what she's essentially saying. Look, I'm willing to work with anybody at this point if I can get this deal through. The problem is, do we really know what she means by that? Yes, I'm willing to work with Jeremy Corbyn and to try to get some kind of common thing. But what does that mean? You've already stipulated that certain red lines are still in place. So it's like, is it really working with him? And to some degree, Jeremy Corbyn answered this in a similar way. Essentially saying, look, I'm happy to work with the Prime Minister. I've been trying to work with the Prime Minister. But understand what that means when Jeremy Corbyn says I'm trying to work with the Prime Minister. He wants a collapse of this government. He does. Let's just be honest. A collapse of this government allows a general election, which allows him, because he knows that if a vote is taken today, most likely Labour is going to win and the Tory party is going to get slaughtered. If that's true, which I think it is true, his incentive in this, yes, to some degree, the best for Britain, and he's going to have to toe a certain line from a political standpoint to show that he's working for the best of Britain, because you can't just be outright ravenous, in your political ambitions. But simultaneously, though, if the Prime Minister is giving him something that he can work with, to some degree he's going to have to work with it, particularly if he's stipulated that this is what he wants, and the Prime Minister says, here, go for it, I'm going to give it to you. And he says, no, I don't want that. So understand, to some degree, what the Prime Minister is doing here, to some degree, is trying to force Labour to work with her. But again, what does that term mean? What does work with mean? And what is she willing to give in this situation? Because if she's bringing Jeremy Corbyn in, she knows what he wants. What is she willing to give to allow him to bend to some degree? And even within the context of that, it still has to be voted on by the 27 member states of the European Union, who have said we're not reopening the deal. By the same token, they may be willing for a customs deal, because Tusk has mentioned that. Just kind of a customs option, with a customs union, which is what Jeremy Corbyn is trying to push for. So Jeremy Corbyn's response to this was right here. At least I thought I had this up. I've been going through so many of these documents. Well, let's just say it this way. Brexiteers hate it. Jeremy Corbyn's response is cautious but optimistic. I'm very happy to meet with May to discuss the compromise, but he makes this point at the end of, Brexit wasn't meant to be something that hurts the workers in Britain. And whatever deal that's taken place has to take into account the well-being of the people that are in Britain itself. I think that's perfectly right. MPs seek to stop no-deal Brexit by tabling Article 50. No-deal Brexit more likely by the day, says Michael Barnier. Up to 20 Tories could vote against May in a confidence vote, meaning, like I said, the calls for May's head are getting louder. May has already said she's resigning after this. They're like, that's not soon enough, buddy. That's not soon enough. I think that's everything on this one. But it's chaos. They were supposed to be gone by now, and they still don't know what Brexit means. So I am following the story. This is a fascinating story, so I will leave it here. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the content through PayPal or Patreon. We have extra content for patrons or contributors. Let's say contributors. We have extra content for contributors. In fact, we have a new... I'll release that on another thing where I can just show it in total. But if you can support the content, please consider. Otherwise, please help, like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.